Hey, it's your guy Tyrrell back with the interviews. In today's video, we're going to briefly break down how Manchester United dropped points for the first time this season, failing to beat Wolves at Molineux. But before we do that, don't forget to give our video a thumbs up if you do enjoy it. The bell below does give you daily notifications regarding our organic, unfiltered soccer/footy analysis. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel. But now, let's briefly get to the starting lineups. We look at Wolves 3-5-2, Jimenez and Jota up front, with Johnny and Doherty out in the wing-back roles, and in midfield, Dendoncker, João Moutinho, and Ruben Neves. Then we get to Manchester United. No real surprises here. 4-2-3-1. Martial up front. Just in behind him, Rashford, Lingard, and Daniel James. And in midfield, we want McTominay and Pogba. So now, let's break down Manchester United against Wolves. See how Wolves caused United problems, why United struggled to create chances, and then get into how Wolves were able to fight back into the game. So when we look at Manchester United against Wolves, the big question here was how are they going to score goals? United struggling to score from open play, thrashing Chelsea on the counterattack in transition, whereas for Wolves, a bit too defensive-minded last weekend. And even though we knew they were going to play on the counterattack here, how are they going to get themselves in positions to test David De Gea? 3-5-2 ends up becoming 5-3-2 without the ball, and Wolves' defensive approach makes sense, which isn't a surprise given the fact that they troubled lots of teams in the top 6 last season. In that 3-5-2, they match up well in midfield. Neves marks out Lingard. You have McTominay against Dendoncker, and you have Moutinho stepping to Paul Pogba. The wide areas, they're covered because they have the wing backs and they have extra insurance in the back. But the way that they did go about it was that they had Jota and Jimenez, the two strikers, drop off a bit deeper, not pressing Lindelof and Maguire, looking to keep themselves in between Paul Pogba when he did drop off a bit deeper. So that helped out because when João Moutinho stepped out to press Wan-Bissaka, as the shuttlers do when the balls go out to the fullbacks, you'd have Jota sit on Paul Pogba to ensure that he couldn't get on the ball. And that's kind of how Wolves went about it. And a lot of it stemmed from the fact that United's attacking shape wasn't that good. It was very basic, not a lot of movement, and they moved the ball a bit too slow. So that really played into Wolves' hands as they were able to maintain their shape. And that was the key as to having those two kind of sit on Pogba. Moutinho could maintain his shape. You have Dendoncker there looking to step to McTominay. And that was key because what ended up happening here is that the way United was shaped kind of put Wolves in a position where they knew how to go about things. You had Martial, who was sticking up front. You had Rashford, who was dropping off near Bennett, which means Luke Shaw would push forward and he would be near Doherty. On the opposite side, Daniel James kept himself on the touchline, so he held Johnny out in position, which means Moutinho could step to Wan-Bissaka. And then you had Lingard, who was playing in a central role, often playing a bit narrow as well, ahead of Bowley. But as the game wore on, he dropped off deeper and deeper to ensure that he could get on the ball because he was starving for service. And that was kind of key here because if he's dropping off into that position, Moutinho obviously is in a position where he can block off those passes, but Lingard was searching for the ball because, like I said, it was just very stationary. Dendoncker marking out McTominay, Martial doing a poor job more so up until his opener, not really holding up the ball well, linking play, getting pushed off it. And that was the big issue here, is that United struggled to create chances and Wolves weren't pushing forward, which ultimately led to their downfall because they were sitting off a bit deeper as they were keeping their shape and ensuring that United couldn't create any chances. But apart from Jimenez really doing a good job of holding up the ball and bringing the midfield into play, they never really got in behind United's defense. Whereas for United, it was just a matter of how they were going to break them down because, like I said, if the ball goes out wide, Moutinho steps there and they shift across and they ensure that they get onto the ball. Because Shaw was so high, they could push out Doherty to him. When he did drop off a bit deeper now, you would have McTominay step out onto that position. And what would happen is that Neves would come across and then Moutinho would come across because, or they'd have Doherty kind of step in as well because basically if Rashford's near Bennett, then they don't really, he's marking no one. So they can have him step in and make sure to occupy that space. But when you really break things down and see how United were able to eventually create chances, a lot of it stemmed to when they had the offensive players moving off the ball and getting into positions where they weren't so stationary, where they weren't sitting near their marker and not really moving and waiting for things to happen. You look to one in particular where you would just have Pogba dropping off a bit deeper, and they eventually United, Lindelof splits the two attackers, Pogba drops off to get the ball, and Moutinho doesn't step, Neves doesn't step because they're fine with their shape. However, Pogba's range of passing allows him to play that ball in between Bennett and in between Doherty for Rashford actually drifting out into that space. Finally, he drifts out into that space, goes 1v1 with Cody, cuts in, cuts out, cuts back out, and then delivers across into the box. And you see Martial just getting there, but Boli does a good job to ensure that he's unable to get his head onto the cross. But again, just Rashford taking a risk, making a run into that channel, trying to make things happen. Martial looking to get across, as he always does when he's in the box. And that's a good opportunity for United, but we weren't seeing enough of that. Fortunately for them, the goal did see more movement, although it was a bit basic. What is key here is that Lingard finally had the courage to move away from this side of the pitch, drifting laterally to the left side of the pitch. And a lot of it does stem from Wolves just having a breakdown, but Lingard moving into that space was very pivotal to how they were able to get that goal. Because what happens here is that Shaw ends up getting the ball out in the left-hand zone, but we see Lingard running off Neves, and he pushes out to Neves' right side, and he's able to get the ball because what happens here is that Dendoncker doesn't step to McTominay or Shaw quick enough. So now Lingard's able to get that ball there, and he drops it off to McTominay. So he drops it off to McTominay, and then McTominay ends up sliding out to Luke Shaw, and then we finally get Wolves in their shape. What happens though is that Neves doesn't pick up Lingard. He watches Lingard, and João Moutinho doesn't pick up anyone as well. And Lingard now moves into that space in between Doherty and in between Dendoncker. Ball played into him, and he gets it ahead of Bennett. And what happens here is that even Rashford, who swapped positions with Lingard as that was happening, runs off Neves. So now Lingard gets the ball ahead of Bennett. He plays it to Rashford, running off Cody, and Shaw continued his initial run, and as Rashford looks to play it beyond Cody for Shaw, you also have Martial making the run across Boli, and shockingly, it's Martial who gets onto that ball instead of Shaw, and he fires a superb effort past the keeper. But it's just a breakdown. Neves doesn't pick up his man, João Moutinho doesn't pick up a man because Pogba's a bit deeper, but as the play progressed, they still ball watched, and United were just able to play simple passes and pull markers out of position because they had a numerical advantage, and Martial made the difference there. That as the game wore on, we eventually saw Wolves trying to press a bit higher, and then we saw a bit more of Pogba, because as they pressed higher, we'll look to one opportunity in particular. You have the two forwards stepping out to Maguire and Lindelof, and what happens there is that Maguire slides the ball out to Wan-Bissaka. That forces Johnny to step to him, and who drops off? Pogba. Neves tries to step to him. Moutinho can't because he has Lingard playing right in behind him. And what happens there is that Pogba now is able to find Martial, who drops off a bit deeper. Cody steps to him. Martial finally does a good job to hold the ball up, drops it off to McTominay, and United are able to go about their way. But like I said, the first half just lacking a bit of flair, guile, invention, no one taking risks. United just sticking very into their shape, and they weren't really winning any individual battles. Rashford wasn't getting the ball in those narrow positions, as was Lingard, to make things happen. Luke Shaw wasn't creating anything from the left. Daniel James wasn't beating Johnny. So and the midfield battle was tight. So when you think about just Rashford making a simple run into the left channel, Lingard just floating across. Yes, Wolves can blame themselves for their downfall in the first half, but they improved in the second half. One being down to their pressing, they pushed higher up the pitch, and it made sense because they have the strikers that could push to the center backs, they could push the wing backs to the full backs, they have the midfield battle intact if they want to close down when United tried to play out of the back, which they constantly did rather than going long a few times, which didn't make sense because if Wolves are playing a bit higher, you could get Rashford, Lingard, Martial into spaces between the center backs where they obviously have the advantage there. We saw Rashford run at Bennett on one occasion, and Bennett could only foul him and concede a booking, so that was odd, but Wolves did that and they got back into the game. But the key man here was Adama Traore. His arrival changed everything because now, instead of Shaw pushing forward and ensuring that Doherty was sitting back, Traore offers a much more physical and swift attack then Doherty. And although he is a bit wasteful in the final third, he does force you to drop off a bit deeper. So when Shaw was pushing forward, Traore was with him. But now the key here was that Traore was getting the better of Shaw in 1v1 situations. And even if McTominay shifted over to help him out, he was getting the better out of him. It started with Cody hitting a diagonal out to Traore, where he was able to run into both players, still get the ball back, and force Maguire to foul him. That led to Moutinho's free kick that Jimenez hit off the post, and then Neves on 2 occasions clipping out diagonals beat one clicking out to Traore, who beat Shaw on the outside. His cross was cleared, but then Jota dropped it back to Neves, and this time again you see Moutinho and you see Traore getting to that diagonal at the byline, pulling it back for Maguire to clear for the corner that eventually led to the goal where, yes, you could blame United. There's no need for 3 players to try to mark out João Moutinho and then have no one at the edge of the box for the pullback for Ruben Neves, who scored a cracker. Like I said, although Traore was the key man in that second half, United did have one golden opportunity to win the game. It's Paul Pogba dropping off deeper, finally making a surging run rather than sitting deeper and lofting diagonals out into the wider areas. This time you see Pogba get the ball, easily skip past Jimenez. Moutinho comes over to help with Dendoncker, but what happens is that Martial is backed into Bennett. Pogba splits the 2 with the pass, continues his run, gets the back heel, skips past Neves before he's fouled by Cody. However, Rui Patricio makes a big save, denies the penalty shot, and this again was about Traore. Ball slid out to him. He wins a header against Shaw, then runs into McTominay, skips past him, drives at Maguire. Lindelof clears the cross. Again, warning signs here. The final opportunity that I am going to break down, Bennett gets the ball out in a wider area. Rashford steps to him. What happens now is that Traore stays on the line, attracts McTominay, skips past him, skips past Luke Shaw, delivers across to the far post for Johnny breaking in, but he nods a tame effort at the keeper. When you break down the game as a whole, United getting the opportunity to take the game to Wolves, given the fact that they offered no counter-attacking threat, but they didn't vary their movement off the ball. When they did, it led to positive chances. When they didn't, very easy for Wolves to defend. How did Wolves get back into the game? Bring in Traore, press a bit higher. You have a wide direct threat that could run at Luke Shaw, McTominay, and pull Maguire out. They were able to find openings, eventually got an equalizer that they deserved, and at the 90-minute mark, you have to say that this was a game fitting for a draw based on everything that happened. But let me know what you guys think. Can Wolves overachieve and do one better this season? Perhaps crack the top 4? And what about United? Aiming to finish in the top 4, but do they have enough goals in them to do that? Meet me in the comments below. Don't forget I upload videos every day, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And that was your daily dose of the interviews.